Tired of fantasy literature that caters only to wine-ounts and activists? Tired of love triangles and unlikable girl bosses? Tired of propaganda disguised as entertainment? If so, check the Guilds of Avlaan series, a series like no other ever written in the Western market, with cute and funny female leads and dashing male protagonists. This series is full of adventure and exciting landscapes. Do not let others decide what you enjoy. Look for what you enjoy. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Konnichiwa, minasan. Daigo desu. Today, I bring you a personal anecdote related to my new situation. As you can see, I am in that cozy old room again, thanks to the contributions of the audience. The writer was capable of expanding the resources of the system, and now this place is mine. Now there is no security trying to stop me online. This is now completely offline. There is enough room for everything I need, for everything I want, and that I have yet to take, and that I have not yet to take. Everything I have already acquired. But of course, it's time to conquer new spaces. And unfortunately, that includes needing a new graphics card, which he could not afford. Another thing he could not afford, because he could afford some upgrades, including more storage space, but he could not afford a cover for the books. This is in large part due to the increase in prices from illustrators. Unfortunately, the economy isn't easy. But this is the part where it becomes my problem. And that's because suddenly I started to notice something strange, something wrong. I remembered something from the past. While I was hearing his ramblings about how much it costs to rig a VTuber avatar, I remembered seeing plenty of indie VTubers with very expensive, complex avatars complaining about not having money for their bills. And that's where I began to reflect upon it, and began to ponder on it, and realized most of the time the problem is they're spending their money wrong. They spend a lot on a VTuber avatar, thousands of dollars on a VTuber avatar, but don't have the money for their basic needs, for paying their bills. And then they are talking about going homeless. Now there are two possibilities. First one, which is a bit, sorry, I am trying to fix this. First one, which is the worst, is that they could be lying, of course. But some of them are actually not lying, and in fact they are destitute. They are struggling economically because they don't have financial responsibility. They spend hundreds of dollars on a VTuber avatar, acting as if they were a VTuber company, spending a lot of money, and end up not having any means to bring back that investment or making more money with it. An avatar is an investment. Art is an investment in this field in general. Be it music, be it illustration, be it the background music for those VTubers who have one, their logos. Everything is an investment in this industry. Everything is an investment. If you are spending money on something and you don't get anything in return, you are doing it wrong. I'm afraid you are doing it wrong. And sometimes you can afford throwing money away. When you are in the condition of throwing money away, when I don't know, you can spend on something that you plan to use for something else, and that's the thing. For example, let's say you pay for software that you plan to use long term. That's not as much of an issue, especially if it's not too much money, compared to, for example, spending on a VTuber avatar, spending hundreds of dollars on a VTuber avatar, and not seeing anything in return. And they have this idea that they must have the expensive avatar, that they must have this super detailed logo, that they must have a template for their schedules because the corporate VTubers do it. But the corporate VTubers do it because they have the money to do it. Because the company has the money. The company puts the money expecting to see a return in their investment. And well, if there is no return in their investment, the talent graduates. Let me put it that way. If the company doesn't see a return in their investment, the talent is done for. The talent graduates. If they generate the losses, they get terminated. These companies, they are not playing around. They are not pretending to be a business. They are a business, except for Bishoyo. Bishoyo was special, but that's why the companies that don't act responsibly end up going defunct, like Bishoyo. But you are, if you are an indie VTuber, you are an individual with a finite amount of money, without investors, without company backing. You need to be more responsible with your money. You need to be more careful. You shouldn't be spending thousands of dollars on an avatar if you don't have that kind of disposable income. If your disposable income has already reached the thousands of dollars, or if you have been saving for years for that avatar, or whatever time it takes, if you have been saving for that avatar, go ahead. Go ahead, spend it. But if you are going to struggle to make ends meet by spending on that avatar, don't do it. Don't do it. There are low cost and free resources you can start using before you really start making money, before you can go for a more expensive avatar. And in fact, some really successful indie VTubers stick to a modified version of the least expensive avatars. Kirsche, for example, she has talked about it. Her avatar is pretty much a Viroid. We are not so different, I guess. The difference is I'm a guy. I'm a lot more magical, a lot less attractive, and a lot less likable. I'm more magical in the sense that I'm an evil god, and she wouldn't even think of hurting children, and I like to give Timmy regular beatings. It's the best way to vent frustrations. Going out of my way to hurt this specific individual, targeting this specific individual is a great way to relax after a hard day. But anyway, I'm not as likable as her. I'm not as popular as her for obvious reasons. I am not that likable. But the thing is, these years, look at them. They are not so different. And that's the thing. She didn't invest that much. She did invest because she customized plenty of things, including accessories. She didn't invest that much on her avatar compared to some who make the mistake, and this is an important part, in comparison to some who make the mistake of investing too much and seeing nothing in return. And that's the thing, because she saw a return in most of her investments. except for the artists who ghosted her and who went away with the money or things like that. But that's a different thing. And she did try to get a more traditionally made avatar, and that didn't end well for her. She just didn't go destitute. That's why I say proportionally and comparatively she didn't invest that much in proportion, because she was already making enough money to be able to fund it one way or another, through donations, through whatever. But that's the thing. You can start really small. You can start from the very bottom. You don't need to start with this super cool avatar. What you need the most, which I don't have, I'm afraid, is personality. I'm afraid I don't have it. Unfortunately, not everyone does. But you don't need to start with too much. And even in terms of audience, different audiences are attracted to different personalities, and some VTubers don't use their kayfabe that much. For example, you have B, who has this troll avatar, and he uses it a lot, but the personality is the same as B. And then you have the incarnation of kayfabe, the god of kayfabe and evil, that is me, but I'm not that successful. And I don't spend that much on this. I spend more time trying to tweak the low cost elements I can use at the moment, rather than spending money on something I might not see a return in investment from, something I might be losing money from, and something sincerely I don't have the money for. I don't have $1,000 for an avatar. If I had them, the design will be a lot more different. First of all, it will be a lot more on Miyoji themed. I would even have the hat of a Taoist priest. I would have this beautiful mustache, which is pending because I don't have the money for it. What's that the thing? I would be a lot more awesome. I also would have more tails. I'm super nerd right now. I have only one. But if I was at full power, and money is power, I will have at least 8. I don't remember how many I had in the past, because I am still struggling with some of my memories. But I remember having more than just one. I will have more, and they will move beautifully, in a kaleidoscopic fashion that will hypnotize the audience. But I don't have it, because of the money. And that's the thing. I'm not going homeless just for having this avatar. But there are VTubers who basically do. Who basically put their money in danger. And it's not just VTubers. There are also other people who commission works, mainly illustration, but also animation, which end up costing them literally their houses. But right now the point is, you don't need to spend to start being a VTuber. Even literal PNG tubers can start better than someone who spends carelessly. You don't need to put those thousands of dollars on something you are not sure will be your main source of income. Now, if it becomes your main source of income, my condolences first of all, because this isn't a very stable market, and it could end tomorrow. Literally, you could need to graduate from one day to another. Not me, because I haven't really made a proper debut, and because the only thing I graduate are kitchenware. That's the only thing I graduate. But plenty of other VTubers might find themselves in the need for a graduation, particularly because of economic losses. As I said, if this becomes your main source of income, you have my condolences, because it's not that great as a source of income, especially if you do streaming. There are very few VTubers like me who do pre-recorded content. I know one or two besides me, and one of them is currently absent without leave because her location is, well, makes it difficult for her to create content. Let's put it that way. The thing is, there are not that many. There are not that many uh, VTubers who make pre-recorded content nowadays. So if you are going for streaming, you're not just going to have to invest a lot of money if you want that that beautiful customized avatar. You will also need to invest plenty of mental energy. The reason many indie VTubers suddenly go in indefinite hiatus, some of them go on vacation regularly, and some of them are actually active elsewhere, but they are not streaming. It's exactly because of that. They stop streaming because it's too much, because it takes a toll in the mind. Even interacting with the chat, even if everything is cordial and ideal, it takes a lot of effort for people on the on the long run. So no, don't spend more than you can afford spending. That's the point of this video. Don't don't spend more than you can afford spending. And if you can't, don't feel bad for it. You can still succeed. You can still build something and eventually be able to spend that money, that energy, those resources. If you really want to do this, you need to understand that starting low doesn't mean giving up. That starting with one viewer or with pre-recorded content and only one viewer, which is much worse because having one viewer on a stream is better than having one viewer in a pre-recorded video. But even if you start there with only one viewer in pre-recorded content and with a fucking Vroid, you can still grow and eventually have this beautiful custom avatar and a custom background and custom background music and a dozen of viewers and profits, which is the most important part. Profits are the most important part here. If you don't give up, you have that opportunity. But if you give up, or if you start spending more than you can too fast, you might crash and burn. That will be the end of your career. Spending too much too fast is a mistake commonly made by independent creators in general. Independent musicians, independent writers, independent comic book writers and illustrators, independent VTubers. Spending too much too fast on things you can't really afford is very common. You want to start a career as a musician and you spend a lot on an electric guitar before learning to play the guitar. I know someone who did that. It's sad, but it's true. It's a very common mistake. It's a very common pitfall of being an independent creator. It's the wrong way to start a project, but it sometimes happens, and you get used to it. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's how it is sometimes. Unfortunately, sometimes you spend more money than you should. Sometimes you waste money. Sometimes you make mistakes. Because nobody told you. Because nobody warned you. Because you were convinced you need to be like the big ones to go straight to the big leagues. No, you can start from the bottom. In fact, you will start from the bottom. Even if you spend that much money, You will start from the bottom because now you don't have any money. So start small. Start with a plan. Instead of wasting money and going homeless the next week. Well, that's it for today. See you next month or maybe next year. I don't really have a very consistent schedule here.